contemporary landscaping. Right. Here's DC. This one is one of the streets that leads into Pennsylvania Avenue. You guys might have heard some of the controversy between Tony Kornheiser and Lance Armstrong earlier this year about the Pennsylvania Avenue bike lane. But here's the design, what it's going to look like. Vancouver, we'll talk a little bit about this one later on. This is again, you can see this is a raised bike lane on this side. On this side, it's flush with the parking lane, which is also has some trees in it. It's landscape.
Is that a one-way street?
Yes. Yeah. And then here's Dunsmuir Street. So if you haven't seen it, there's a pretty fabulous YouTube video of Dunsmuir Street. If you go on YouTube and look up Vancouver City Hall, this is in Vancouver, BC, there's a whole sort of simulation of all of the different things they're doing along the corridor. It really gives you a sense of the whole range of things that could be part of a facility like this. In this case here, I liked this one because it shows how they're using some of their extra space. There's some bike parking racks there. And then here's a bike box also, which is where bikes queue up. And they've even got a couple of little, see these little rubber tubes here, these are counters. So they're actually doing a good job of trying to keep track of how well this thing is getting utilized and when and all of those things. Here's Montreal. And there's the side path over there on the left. And then here's just a little summary of North American cycle tracks. And you see the buffer type varies a lot. It can be painted, it can be raised and landscaped, it can be the concrete sort of Jersey rail buffer. It ranges in length from a foot to 3 to 4 feet to 15 feet. So again, you know, these are decisions that are primarily probably driven by right-of-way, but it might be nice to have some, you know, about what's available, but it might be nice to have some indication of, you know, well, this volume of traffic or this speed of traffic, you really want a minimum of X or whatever it is. So a lot of these decisions are just driven by what's available and also the cost, because there's a wide range of cost in these treatments. So let's talk about why they're controversial.
As a way of maybe leading into this, those of you who follow the Great Cities blog from last year may have been following a young man by the name of Brian Miller, who was posting from time to time, who was studying in Copenhagen for the last 8 months or so. My kid. And when he went over there, he was sent with some instructions from his father to ride some more. Brian is a competitive cyclist in addition to part-time health. He's completed his studies. And he was fascinated by his reaction. He was expecting to go over to Copenhagen and see bicycle nirvana. In fact, that's all he would talk about for the 6 months of the trip. And he got there, and he discovered that there are many, many issues associated with how the Danes have decided to apply bike facilities. In the parlance of poker, they're all in. Okay, they made a huge commitment going back into the 70s to install cycle tracks throughout the city. Yes, there are. You will find sharrows, you will find bike lanes, you will also find traditional trails. I remember in my time in the county, a number of Danish bike planners actually came to Seattle to see our trails, to take ideas back to some of their greenway development that's occurred over the last 20 years. So we're all kind of swirling around. And these concepts aren't particularly new, not even in this country. I think many of us are familiar that Interlochen Avenue started off as a bike trail. Los Angeles had an elevated bicycle facility that went from downtown LA to Pasadena. You paid 2 cents and you rode an elevated wood trestle. People today just can't imagine the kind of access that would provide. You get last, but you know, the point remains, these things have been around. So the images are beautiful. And we look at this and say, why can't we be like that? And yet at the same time you start to look at it, and particularly for people who've been riding for a long time, or for those who have been advocates for a long time, you start to get this little feeling in the pit of your stomach that says, wow, there's some serious change here in how we would be approaching bicycle transportation in terms of speed, in terms of culture and traffic management. So a little bit of history. This is not the slide I wanted to use initially. I'll tell you why in a moment. This is a German Autobahn from the 1930s. And those National Socialists, those guys, a lot of Northern European cycle track development actually came from Nazi Party doctrine in the 30s. I know that's a really loaded statement, but they were trying to resurrect an economy through highway building and subsidized automobile imagery. Now stop me if that sounds familiar. Okay. And during World War II, when the Germans occupied the Northern European countries, a lot of their efforts to separate bike traffic off of the roads permeated into Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, and you started seeing these networks develop over the course of time that the war was going on. A kind of an interesting byproduct of their involvement, to be sure. And bike clubs, frankly, were on the scale of groups and organizations that were suppressed under the Nazis. The bike clubs were probably pretty low on the list. But they were definitely put off to the side, deorganized, in fact, because they were getting in the way of this picture, that image. So, fast forward to today, is the cycling picture. We've seen, I think many of us have seen the websites. I Heart Copenhagen, I Heart CPH, Copenhagenize this, so on and so on. And you say, well, this is a bike town. One of Ryan's early conclusions was, it is anything but a bike town. It is a town in which it is incredibly easy to ride a bike. But it's not a culture of cyclists. He was looking for avocational cyclists. He was looking for the hipsters on fixies, on the fixie gear bikes, and couldn't find them. And as he started to learn more about Danish culture, it started coming clear why this wasn't necessarily the case. The Danes, if anything, are some of the most obedient public citizens you will ever meet. This is the palace guard waiting at a traffic light, waiting to change the It's an astonishing thing to see. March, 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 light changes, they stop. These guys are the automatic weapons. But there is definitely a code in there. Oh, yeah, I'm sure I completely screwed up the pronunciation. But basically it says, we is greater than me. We don't stand out. We conform. We obey. We achieve together. And it works very, very well for them. The Danes have a very, I won't say I won't say it's not a very diverse public. There are Danes and there are outsiders. And so there is an ability within that culture to put up with, if you want to put it that way from an American perspective, tighter regulation of any number of aspects of life than we as Americans traditionally would attribute to ourselves. And traffic is one of those areas. Okay, so my visit to Copenhagen to pick up said son occurred at Christmas break, so I got a chance to see the bicycling city when it was 19 degrees. And it is an amazing thing. Those tracks, they do clear the snow. They do a far better job of clearing the snow on the cycle tracks than they do the sidewalks. In fact, an awful lot of the space that is dedicated to cycle tracks in Copenhagen came equally from the street system and